January 31, 1945, Clark Air Base, Luzon. Major Frank T. McCoy's hands trembled as he photographed an intact Mitsubishi G4M Betty Bomber parked on the tarmac. It nearly 20 meters long, with a wingspan of roughly 25 meters, the aircraft sat like a massive cigar in the tropical sun, a sleek, deceptively fragile-looking machine whose outward solidity belied the secrets McCoy would soon uncover. This was no wreck. The engines, the landing gear, the skin of the aircraft were intact. But when McCoy slipped through an inspection panel and into the wing structure, what he found would shock Allied engineers. The bomber's fuel tanks were completely unprotected. Thin aluminum skins, no self-sealing compound, no armor, no meaningful fire suppression. What looked like daring design at first glance now appeared to be a deliberate, uncompromising sacrifice. McCoy had inspected dozens of crashed Japanese aircraft across the Pacific, but nothing prepared him for the implications. Here, in a single, pristine example captured during the American advance, was proof of a radically different engineering philosophy. Weight and range had been prioritized above crew protection. The discovery forced Allied analysts to reassess assumptions about Japanese design trade-offs and to quantify the cost of that choice in human life and tactical vulnerability. The mathematics of fuel weight, empty weight, and range would reshape Allied tactical thinking and aircraft priorities for the remainder of the war. The Betty's story began years earlier, on December 8, 1941. As smoke still rose over Pearl Harbor, 82 G4M bombers and 26 older G3M aircraft lifted from Formosa, bound for Clark Field. Flying high, beyond the effective altitude of many American anti-aircraft batteries, the formation struck with surgical precision. Bombs smashed runways and facilities at 12:35, and then Zero fighters swooped low to finish the job, strafing grounded aircraft. Of 17 B-17 Flying Fortresses on the field, a dozen were destroyed. P-40 Warhawks were reduced to burning wreckage. In 45 minutes, American air power in the Philippines was effectively neutralized. Lieutenant James Harrington, one of the few survivors, later recalled the precision of the attack. The bombers struck from high altitude, untouched, then fighters descended to shred those who remained. The Bettys themselves departed intact, a testimony to their extraordinary range and the advantage it conferred when opposition was limited. 2 days later at sea, the Bettys would demonstrate another terrifying capability. On December 10, 1941, G4Ms and G3Ms attacked Force Z, the British battle fleet, centered on HMS Prince of Wales and HMS Repulse. Coordinated torpedo attacks, executed from the air with devastating accuracy, struck both capital ships and sank them within hours. More than 800 British sailors perished. For the first time in naval history, capital ships at sea had been destroyed by aircraft alone. The Betty's range and torpedo capability had torn a gap in naval theory that would echo through the war. Across the first half of 1942, the G4M became ubiquitous in Japanese operations. Raids on Darwin, strikes against New Guinea and Guadalcanal, reconnaissance missions far beyond Allied reach. Its operational reach routinely exceeded anything in Allied service at the time, giving the Imperial Navy a tool to strike at distant targets without close air support. When Betty formations could operate beyond the interception range of fighters and anti-aircraft defenses, their effect was devastating. The aircraft's combination of range, speed, and payload matched the Navy's strategic needs in an empire that spanned thousands of miles. But the Betty's advantage was conditional. As Allied fighter strength and tactical sophistication grew, the vulnerabilities engineered into the G4M became fatal. The turning point manifested in bloody episodes such as August 8, 1942, when 23 Bettys attacked Guadalcanal and 18 were shot down during engagement with American fighters. A catastrophic loss that claimed around 120 aviators. Pilots repeatedly reported the same phenomenon. A single hit and the Betty would erupt into flames. Grim nicknames, Flying Cigar, One Lighter, Flying Zippo spread rapidly through Allied squadrons, encapsulating the aircraft's deadly tendency to ignite. Reports hinted at a structural reason for these losses, but the full explanation only crystallized when intact examples were captured and examined. The first substantial intelligence breakthrough came in November 1942, when Allied units overran airfields at Buna in Papua New Guinea and recovered multiple Bettys. Technical teams found the same pattern in every machine. Fuel tanks were unprotected, thin-skinned, and placed where they were most likely to be struck in combat. The Allied Technical Air Intelligence Unit conducted detailed studies and confirmed the pilots' worst fears. The Betty's fuel system was a single, fatal vulnerability. The specifications gleaned from McCoy's Clarkfield capture and earlier examinations told a telling story. The G4M was optimized for range and speed, unusually light empty weight, a top speed in the mid-200s miles per hour, and fuel capacity measured in thousands of liters. Fuel, roughly 0.8 kilograms per liter, accounted for a huge portion of takeoff weight. 4,000 to 5,000 liters translated into several thousand kilos of fuel at full load. Engineers found 8 tanks distributed in the wing center section, arranged to maximize capacity but exposed to enemy fire. Eliminating self-sealing compounds, armor plating, and redundant safety systems saved hundreds of kilograms per aircraft, translating directly into extended operational radius and payload. The trade-off, however, was stark. A single puncture could lead to continuous leakage, fire, and the destruction of the aircraft. This design choice was not accidental, but rather the result of deliberate strategic priorities set in Tokyo in the late 1930s. The Imperial Navy's requirements were brutal and clear. Create a land-based bomber capable of striking targets at the vast distances Japan's empire required. Previous models could not meet those ranges. Engineers, led at Mitsubishi by Kiiro Hanjo after Joji Hattori, studied European techniques and computed every kilogram in the weight budget. Hanjo and his team realized that to satisfy range and speed requirements with the technology of the day, protection would have to be sacrificed. The choice was between an aircraft that met operational reach with known vulnerability, or an aircraft that survived hits but could not get to the target. The Navy had demanded performance, and Mitsubishi delivered. The G4M prototype first flew in October 1939 and entered production in the years before the Pacific War. Initially, in the context of surprise and understrength opposition, the Betty's range and speed validated